shipping development, and ship registration.
NIMASA This Week, the voice of maritime, showing on this channel.
Increase the reach of your events or business services. To advertise on Plus TV Africa, please call 0906 000 5719 or 0909 040 8408 or send an email to marketing@PlusTvAfrica.com. Plus TV Africa. Big stories live here.
Several reactions trail the list. I am Mary Anacon. Different reactions have trailed the report of the Lagos State Judicial Panel of Inquiry on restitution for victims of the SARS-related issues of abuses and other matters, with the United States stating that they look forward to Lagos State and the federal government taking suitable measures to address those alleged abuses, as well as the grievances of victims and their families. Also, the Chief of Defense Staff, General Lucky Rabot, claims that the report was released through the wrong channel and that the Lagos State Governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, says it will help to start the process of proper reconciliation of affected victims. Now, joining us to discuss this is legal practitioner Inibere Efyong and former special advisor to the River State Governor, Opunabo Inko Taria. Thank you very much, Mr. Taria, for joining us. And thank you very much, Inibere.
Thank you, and yes, good evening.
All right.
Thank you. My pleasure to join you this evening.
All right. So I'm going to start with you, Inibere, because you obviously have been front and center with a couple of people on this particular issue. Just as we started by saying that several reactions have trailed, the presentation of the report. There are some sensitive parts of this report, just like Mr. Irabo has said, that it was released, some of the pages of this report were released through the wrong means. I don't know what he meant by that, but I remember the last time we spoke on the issue of the bullets that were matched with the army. You didn't sound very positive as to if the government was able to do anything or if people were going to get justice. But here we are now. A report has been presented. Some bits of that report have been leaked, even though people are saying they are unable to authenticate the veracity of the contents of those leaked pages. But what are your thoughts now? Do you have a change of heart somewhat to if the government is going to get justice for the people and all of the victims involved, whether those who were dead or those who were alive?
Well, regarding the leakage, in quotes, of the report, I don't think we should dissipate energy. If a true representation of the position of the panel, but what is being circulated, however, is the draft. That is why it does not have the signature of the chairman and members of the panel. But when the clean copy comes out, you will see that it is exactly the same thing. The difference is that in the one that is being circulated, there are a few, typographical errors. But as to substance, as to their findings, there is nothing in that report that is different from what the panel found or what they have recommended, to the best of my knowledge. Now, I want us to be very realistic about this. We have a regime, or a government, if you prefer that, in this country today that has no regard for human rights. And the government is not pretending about this. NSAS protests happened because of failure of governance. I like to stress these points at every opportunity that I have. They wouldn't have been NSAS if we had a responsible government. If we had a government that lived up to its responsibilities. People came out to protest because there's a vacuum in leadership. The issue of police brutality, the issue of extrajudicial killing of Nigerians, has not been addressed till date. And you see till now, with all that has happened, there are aspects of that report that I believe that the Lagos state government is going to implement. The greater challenge, and I hope so, I want to give the government
Is not in charge of the judiciary. I mean, if this is a report that has been presented, it's supposed to take due process. There has to be prosecution one way or the other because they've been indicted. When you say the regime, you make it sound like the government controls everything.
No, this is not a matter for the courts. It is an entirely, at this point, it is an executive matter. It is not judiciary.
Okay.
It's not a judicial matter. It is not a legislative matter. Of course, Parliament can intervene, but it is not a matter for the courts. The panel has made recommendations. They have reached a conclusion on fundamental issues. One, whether there was a massacre. They have confirmed that there was a massacre. They have given faces to some of the victims of the massacre. They have confirmed, indeed, that the governor of Lagos State invited the army to attack innocent protesters. They have confirmed that the army sabotaged the protest. The finding kill innocent Nigerians, or is not in control of the armed forces. In which case, it is as bad as the first, because it showed that really there is no commander-in-chief, because we have to listen. This is commander-in-chief. You cannot be commanding as a chief if you do not have control of those who are your subordinates. Now, having become aware, let us assume for a second that the president was oblivious of the massacre, of the atrocity that the army committed at the toll gate. Having become aware, having been established through a judicial inquiry, what action is the president going to take? That is the question. I am not optimistic. I do not have any confidence that this president is going to implement the recommendations.
What happened?
Most governors in Nigeria are irresponsible, and I cannot apologize for saying so. They are clearly irresponsible. They don't care. In some of the states, the inquiry was not even a panel. The government did not even set up the inquiry, the panel. In other states, they grudgingly, reluctantly constituted the panels, but refused to provide logistics for the panels to work. One of those states is Akwa Ibom. After the panel was set up, I got to know that the funds that was meant for the taking off of the panel was diverted by somebody in government. And when the funds, they were able to see subsequently, the governor even frustrated the release of the report. So I don't know whether they have finally sent it to Abuja or not. And this is the story in most of the states. Lagos has taken the center stage, greater attention to be paid to Lagos. But other states, very little attention has been paid. Why? The governors are irresponsible.
Interesting. Mr. Taria, on the report, 11 people were killed. 4 are still being declared missing. 20 of them have been injured, all of them at the Lekki toll. But in November of 2020, I'd just like to bring the minds of everyone watching to what the minister...
Let me start by commending the panel in Lagos for the ramrod integrity with which it sat through. I must commend that panel because I was one of those who actually dismissed the various panels as a packed jury, which were set up as a Fabian policy to tire the opposition, give the world the impression that they were actually doing something, when in actual fact, it was seen as a subterfuge to ensure whatever furor it must have thrown up will just fizzle out. Having said that, on the issue of Lai Mohammed, everybody in Nigeria and even the world at large is now seized of Lai Mohammed. Will I call it? I don't even want to call it rhapsody. I'll dismiss it as Mendacinoquent. Unfortunately, he's one man that I really admired before the assumption of office as Minister for Information. But sadly, this is a man that has dragged his name. Malice may deride it. Sorry, malice may distort it. Ignorance may deride it, but there it is. And that is exactly what has just played out. This is exactly what has happened. The truth can never be hidden. And what I cannot also comprehend is the invitation of the military. This was purely a civil matter, and the people conducted themselves in canonical order way. So there was no need. They had flags singing the national anthem, and so there was no need whatsoever to invite the military. The police at no point in time said they have been overwhelmed. So you find a callous, conscienceless government trying as much as it can in a rustic manner, trying to oppress those that are clown. I will not want to dwell much on what Lai Mohammed, who has no credibility, I'm very sorry to say this because it's on national thing, who has no credibility whatsoever anymore, to dwell more about that will be conferring some level of prominence and importance to a man that ordinarily should be dismissed or imprisoned for misleading Nigeria. How can a man without it remember the victims, those that were massacred on that day, rather than assuage their feelings, rather than tell Nigerians that the government will see to it, the government will address the issues, will go on air, and is still insisting that there are no deaths on that day. There can never be a devil's representative than that of the person of Lai Mohammed.
Let's move on
I don't want us to dwell on Lai Mohammed.
Yes, let's not dwell on that. Let's move on to something else.
On the panel, I'm urging the government to ensure the implementation of the panel. On the issue of the CBS, I listened to what my brother said, but on the issue of the CBS, he was equivocal. He did not question the report, the integrity of the report. He only questioned procedural obligations. A situation where, that is what is annoying them. And I'm happy because without this leak, without this disclosure, I can tell you that the government that is dazed by the sincerity of that panel, the recommendations of that panel, or else Nigerians are going to make a butchery of their conscience.
Talking about the Lagos State government, the governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, made some statements at the receipt of that report by members of the panel. Let's take a quick listen to what he said, and then, of course, I'm going to take your thoughts on it.
By either the police or any of our citizens that must have been wronged by one form or the other.
Injured ones, and of course, we don't even know about the families of those who are missing. So the Lagos State government has started doing something. But Mr. Inkotaria, quickly, how easy is it going to be for the Lagos State government in terms of this issue of restitution that he's talking about again? What's the hope that the Lagos State government can really bring all of this to play? Let's not forget also, the government does not have the powers to bring the army to the table. Remember how tough it was for the panel in itself to get the army representatives to come to give their statement. At some point, you know, there was some imbroglio. So here we are. The report has been made clear. We've seen some pieces and bits of it. What's the certainty? Do you think that there is any form of hope out there that maybe this implementation will take place, especially in the angle where the army and the police comes in? Because this is, of course, the police was the basis of this whole protest in the first instance. But let's also not forget that governors and the federal government are being indicted one way or the other.
What the recommendations of the panel will make Nigerians a butchery of their conscience. And in other words, and a rehash will be worse than what we experienced. It is very simple. We must go beyond the issue of rhetoric. We are not interested in rhapsodies. It's not enough to mount pious relevances and sanctimonious trivialities. The panel has recommended. The recommendations include what should be done to the nature authorities and but has to do with, I'm talking about the white people, has to do with the implementation of what the panel has done. So I don't see any, I don't see anything difficult in implementation.